Well, it's that time again. Good morning. 4:44. Cooperation is the key is the title for today. There is much talk about change, and there is certainly a need for a drastic and dramatic shift in human culture. The most difficult shift, perhaps, will be the shift from competition to cooperation. There are lots of people and groups that have wonderful ideas and a vision for a new world based on truth. I need to change something here before I forget because it's not going to be marked. Based on truth, justice, abundance, and of course, love with mutual respect. The how becomes a problem, however, since each one wants everyone else to jump on board his, her, or their organization. I see that with RuSA and many other groups of which I am aware. I wonder, what is it going to take for us to realize that the puzzle will not be resolved until we come together for the common good? I truly believe that cooperation is the key. How to find that key is the dilemma. As I pondered this over the last 20-25 minutes since I finished writing the blurb, many things have crossed my mind. I remember Ronald Reagan way back saying something like, suppose there was a threat from outer space, which I think is the least of our problems. But suppose there was a threat from outer space. Would that not bring together all of the various factions in our world to join forces against a common enemy? Unfortunately, that scenario is not going, well, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on which way you look at it. That scenario is not going to be the one that's going to happen because there is no threat from outer space. If anything, there is help from outer space if we will but recognize that it's help and not think that we have all the answers. An interesting story caught my eye yesterday, I believe it was, or possibly the day before, about the media in Pakistan. And apparently the Taliban is really upset with the Pakistani media for not presenting their side of the story when they tried to kill that little girl because she had the courage to speak out and give a cry for truth and give a cry for meaningfulness. Well, the Taliban's solution, of course, is to return to Sharia law. And there are a bunch of Christians that believe the answer is to turn to fundamentalist Christianity, where we enforce laws on each other. And if only everybody would obey the same laws and the same rules, we wouldn't have these problems. It's because of all the unbelievers. It's their fault. It's their fault. And this is what we've been trained to do in the Matrix, in human culture. We've been trained to nitpick and accentuate the differences instead of the similarities. We've been taught competition. Now, it's not true throughout the world. I remember the test that was done by psychologists many years ago now, where they put American kids and Mexican kids in this little game where they would play this game, like tic-tac-toe, for example. And the American kids would get it where nobody would ever win, because each one wanted to be the winner. And so the American kids, they were trained in competition. And nobody could win. Sound familiar? The Mexican kids, on the other hand, were educated in a different way, perhaps. And they figured out, well, if I'm willing to lose here and let them win, they will do the same thing. And so the Mexican kids learned to cooperate. They would take turns winning and losing. What a concept. What a concept. I talk to people all the time, or get emails from people, sometimes books, sometimes videos, sometimes long dissertations of something to read. And they all have good ideas. Then they wonder why nobody else is joining them to make their idea happen. Well, I know enough to know that I have good ideas, but if all I'm trying to do is to get my ideas to be the ones that everybody agrees on, I'm probably not going to get very far in accomplishing the ultimate goal of changing myself and changing the world. I'm still in the competition mode. I'm still thinking that the only way the world's going to be fixed is if they see it through my eyes. Sounds absurd when you say it, doesn't it? You know, people have to see it my way, and if they could only see it my way, we'd get it right. That's called self-righteousness, folks. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. In fact, if you go back and look at the New Testament, Jesus listed spiritual pride and self-righteousness at the top of the list of sins. It wasn't adultery. It wasn't even lying or murder or anything else. It was being right in your own eyes. That's the ego trip. And our religions have taught us that. But we don't even need to go to religion to see it. It's everywhere. It's in academia. It's in the corporate world. We've got to get on my team. Well, I know that if I'm going to make an impact on the world, the biggest lesson that I need to learn is to cooperate with others that have visions, and to be able to do my best to focus in on what's right with what they're doing. Not what's wrong with it, but what's right with it. The thing that we're looking for, because we have lived in a world of falsehood and fraud and deception and cunning and all of these games that have been, we think, foisted upon us by the elite or by the establishment or by the government or by those that want to be the rulers of everything. It's been forced upon us. No, we have by far and large allowed them to do what they've been doing. That's not going to stay the same, because people are awakening and realizing how fraudulent the entire system is. Therefore, it has to change. But what's going to bring the change? Is it going to be very, very gradual and take years and perhaps decades to accomplish? Or will we reach a tipping point in 2012 that somehow, by some miraculous means, we are brought together and not fight a common enemy, but fight for a common good? The common good is to get truth and justice to start working, because we're not even going to be able to love one another properly if we're doing it in an environment where everybody is out for his or herself and everybody wants to manipulate and control the other people. We have to learn to cooperate, like the Mexican children. The Taliban wants us to see that if only we would do Sharia law, if only we would obey and keep women in their place, then we wouldn't have these problems. We wouldn't have them. I'm appreciative of the Pakistani media for being advanced enough to recognize that the Taliban's answer is not the answer. But are the people in the Taliban totally wrong? What is it that the Taliban wants? What is it that the fundamentalist Christian wants? What is it that we all want? We want a world that works for us, and if we have any brains at all, or any compassion at all, we'll realize that unless it also works for the other people, it won't work for us. As long as we are fighting one another, we cannot possibly be loving one another. And as long as we're fighting ourselves, we cannot possibly be whole. Not possible. If this part of me, my sexuality, my ego, name it, put a name on it. If this part of me is wrong and I'm trying to fix myself instead of just love myself, am I going to be whole? Am I going to be healthy? Am I going to have a mindset that liberates me from this constant battle against what's wrong with me? I saw that a little bit last night as I felt corrected because they were talking about one of the books that some of them are reading or actually listening to on the audio version of the book with the fifth insight with I forget the guy's name right now, but anyway, about gossip. I was sharing some stories of people that have contacted me recently, and I felt corrected. When are we going to gossip, or are we going to focus on something good? Now, I didn't feel that I was gossiping, but I do have the tendency, and I admit I had to have a tendency to focus on what I see as the problem in that instead of the solution. And it doesn't matter what that is. I have that tendency, and so do all of us have that tendency. We focus on what we see that isn't going to work, and we recognize the problem. Well, as I have said many times, God is wise enough to not put all of his eggs in one basket. And forgive me for saying his, because God is her and him, and neither. God is all and in all. But in any case, if the deity were to put everything in one basket, one religion, one nation, one chosen people, you would have the problems that we've had throughout human culture. It's called war. Ultimately, it boils down to war. It's the battle mentality, the dual mentality of duality, instead of the dance mentality. Am I going to get it? Am I going to realize that until I focus on what's right with me, not that I'm ignoring the shadow, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying what's right with me is my ability to love. Now see, a lot of people don't see that humans have that ability. They really don't. Their religions have taught them otherwise. We are born in sin and shapen in iniquity. And we believe it. No, we're not. We're born in love. And we're shaped by culture. A culture of lies. A culture of half-truths. A culture of competition. That's the problem. And as long as we're ignorant of that problem, we won't find the solution. But the solution is in all of the religions, and it's really simple. Love one another as you love yourself. The problem, of course, is that we don't love ourselves. So then we go back to love God. Well, what is God? Well, we fight over what God is. And it gets us absolutely nowhere fast. What's it going to take for 2012 to really be the year that we start learning how to cooperate? I'm convinced that cooperation is the key. And until RuSA learns to cooperate with the Postmaster General and with the other freedom fighters, if you will, the other people that want to reestablish republics, not only in the United States, but around the world, until we learn to cooperate, we won't accomplish anything. I think Foster Gamble is playing a really important role. I think there are many people. Ron Paul has some really wonderful answers. But people don't want him because he's part of the establishment or he's a Mason. I mean, we find everything that's wrong with everybody. Can we not love one another and learn to cooperate? If we do, when we do, we will change the world. And we will raise our consciousness. We will heal ourselves. We will. And it's God working in us. It's not a religion. It's beyond religion. It's not a political party. It's beyond politics. It's not even a monetary thing. It's beyond money. It's cooperation. I encourage you to find the key to cooperation that will work in your life. Love one another. Love yourself. Love all that is. And we will win together. I leave you with these thoughts. Namaste.